Welcome everyone. If you are with us for the first time, we are overjoyed to have you here at the Faith Hub for our worship. And as some of you know, we are in our preaching series, 6-week preaching series on the fullness of life, what it means to have fullness of life. And so between Father Ken, myself, and Mary, we've been preaching about it. This is our week 5. Mary will speak about it today, and Father Ken will close us up next week as we'll land our fullness of life on Palm Sunday, preparing for Easter. So I'm super eager to hear, Mary, what do you have for us?
So when I was asked to reflect a little bit with all of you on the topic of spiritual freedom, I'll admit the first thing that came to mind when I thought of freedom was Mel Gibson's epic movie Braveheart. Anybody like Braveheart? Okay, I'm dating myself, but it is a fantastic movie. And if you have not heard the William Wallace freedom speech in a while, listen to it. It moves me to tears every time. And then the second thing I thought of was my nieces and nephews. Kids are so free. Kids are just so free. They say and do whatever comes to mind. They don't worry too much about what people think. They don't hold back. I find it very refreshing to be with kids. And actually quite hilarious. I think my siblings would kill me if I repeated some of the things their little ones have said and done and leaked out the real scene behind closed doors in their house. But kids are very refreshing, and I especially think of how easily they admit their fears. About 5 years ago, I was putting my nephew Tommy to bed, and he's stalling, and we do prayers and read one story, read another story, and please, Aunt Mary, one more story, please. Finally, I'm tired. I say, Tommy, it's way past your bedtime. Good night. I love you. I'll see you in the morning. And he grabs my neck, and he says, Aunt Mary, please don't go. I'm so scared. And my heart melted. I'm sure Casey would say, come on, he's a boy, toughen him up. But my heart melted. I laid back down and I stayed there until he was fast asleep. And as I was there, honestly, I remember thinking, why is it so easy for kids to admit that they're scared? And why is it so hard for adults to admit that we also have fears? Fear is a human experience. And at that time in my life, I was afraid. I was dealing with a pretty serious health condition. I had sort of put everything on hold that I really loved dearly. My job, some leadership positions I was excited about, my doctoral studies, some marathon training, and many other things that I really enjoyed. But I felt the Lord asking me to just stop and take care of myself. And it was a hard thing to do. And after a few years of failed treatments, I went from optimistic to frustrated to angry to discouraged and finally afraid. And I prided myself on being a tough woman, a strong, independent woman, not afraid of anything, and I was very, very afraid. Afraid of my future, afraid of never getting back to those plans that were paused, afraid of never hitting those goals I had worked so hard towards, afraid of essentially being alone and sick and in pain the rest of my life. And it was at that time that my sister here, Molly, literally dragged me out of bed onto a plane for a trip through Europe, hoping to boost my spirits. And so we were in Croatia. It was my birthday. And she signed us up for a little kayaking into the sunset excursion. So I thought, okay, that sounds amazing. I like sunsets. I'm sure I'm up for a little kayak trip. I'm not that sick. And as we were halfway through the excursion, we pull off at a little alcove, and the guide points to this cliff. And he says, so now we're going to do a little cliff jump. Anybody up for a little cliff jump? And I'm thinking to myself, you are out of your mind. I'm like, how high is it? Oh, it's like 35 feet. Easy. Something in me was like, just do it. Do it. Push yourself past your fear and do it. And so I shot my arm up and said, I'm in. And Molly, wide-eyed, was like, me too? Feeling a little responsible, I think. So there we are climbing up the pretty ragged little cliff. And the guide does a double flip, and glides into the water. You can confirm this story, completely true. It turns out he was on the Croatian Olympic team. Well, that made me feel really good. So then an Australian guy went next, and he was there, I think, trying to impress his new bride. Remember, they were on their honeymoon. So he looks down, says a couple things I cannot say in church. Bleepity, bleep, 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 he goes into the water. So then I'm up, and I'm sitting there thinking, I think maybe some prayers will do me more good than a couple swear words. So we literally prayed the Hail Mary, and I climbed to the edge and jumped off, literally like praying, God help me, pencil, 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 afraid I was gonna break my ankle. So then it was Molly's turn. I don't know how I actually got back up because it felt like I went down to the bottom of the ocean. So she jumps off. The poor woman had a back spasm the rest of the trip. But although it was not the smartest thing we've ever done together, I promise you it was at once one of the most terrifying things I've ever done and one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done, because I was sick, I was afraid, and something in me said, just do it. Just push yourself off that cliff. And as we kayaked back towards the walled city of Dubrovnik and found an ice pack and put her to bed, I truly felt so alive. And I remember promising God that from that moment on, every time fear tried to grip me, I would do an internal cliff jump. And I would just push away that fear of illness, fear of suffering, fear of pain, fear of death, fear of what others thought, and internally jump through that into the hands of God. And I find it really, really beautiful that Jesus we see in today's gospel is a Jesus who, though God, all-powerful, as a man was afraid. The Jesus we heard about in today's gospel was afraid. He said, I'm troubled. I'm scared. He was days away from the most awful, painful experience any human person has ever been through. He was about to be arrested, imprisoned, beaten, abandoned by all of his friends, unjustly accused, and condemned to death. Jesus Christ, on the cross, looking like a convict and a failure, was and is today the freest man who ever lived. Because the freedom in his heart that he expresses today when he says, yes, I'm afraid, I don't want to do this, but what should I do? For this purpose I have come. The night before he died, he said it in this way. He said, no one takes my life from me. I'm not trapped. I'm not forced. I freely lay down my life because there is no greater love than to lay down our lives for a friend. Jesus values freedom. He, nailed to a cross, remained completely free despite painful circumstances, despite his fears, his feelings, because he chose to love. He chose to lean into his purpose. Such is the value of that freedom. It's at the heart of the fullness of life he invites us into. And he died to give you and I that gift. He died so that we too, despite fears and failings and feelings, that we could always remain free in him. And so quickly, I just want to unpack two aspects of the freedom that Jesus gives us if we remain in relationship with him. First, he offers us freedom from, and then he offers us freedom for. So freedom from, by remaining in relationship with Jesus, by walking through life with him, he promises to set us free from all of those things that internally hold us back, from those things that eat away at the fullness of life he died to give us. So what are those things? You might think it's just you, but we all have, I think, similar things that try to bind us up and tie us up in knots. Fear. Fear of the virus, fear of another surge, fear of another lockdown, fear of failure, fear of letting people down, fear of not being good enough or not able to do what I'm asked to do, fear essentially of our future, of the unknown. He also sets us free from doubt, stress, and worry. So the Lydia Institute ladies, we like to call doubt, stress, and worry the little DSW emotional store that we're trying to put out of business. So no more shopping at DSW. Doubt, stress, and worry by turning to Jesus in prayer and sharing an honest conversation with him our doubts. When we doubt ourselves, or we doubt him, or we doubt his plan. Our stresses. The Association of Psychologists did a recent study saying men and women alike are stressed out mainly by work, money, health issues, and family responsibilities. We all are stressed by those things. Doubt, stress, and worry, which put a pressure on us that Jesus wants us to be free of. So the freedom of living life with him through honest conversation and prayer, hearing his promise to be with us, we can be freed from fear, doubt, stress, worry, and pressure. We're freed from that so we can be free for our purpose. So that like Jesus, we can say, for this purpose I have come to love as Jesus loves. And he calls us to a love that's different than maybe what we hear in the popular songs and movies of our culture and our day and age. It's a free love, free in the right way. When Jesus talks about free love, he's inviting us to be like him, to lose ourselves, to live for others. A love that is free of resentments. A love that is free of our ego, our image. A love that is free to push past our feelings. A love that is free of bitterness. St. Paul says it's a love that is patient. A love that is kind. Especially to those people that are hard to be kind to because they're rude or offensive or demanding or inconsiderate. But that free love Christ calls us to is a free choice to wish them well, to bite our tongue, to not gossip, to be kind. St. Paul says it's a love that is capable of forgiveness, a love that is selfless and humble, that says it's not about me. My life is really not about me. I'm here to serve. A love that's capable of sacrificing for the good of another, of not counting the cost, of turning the other cheek, walking that extra mile. So as we prepare to continue on with our worship in this Mass, I just invite you to close your eyes, to open your heart, to open your hands if you feel comfortable, as an expression of your desire to receive this beautiful gift of freedom that Jesus died to be able to give you. And with open heart and open hands, let's try to release whatever he wants to free us from today. Maybe it's a fear that haunts you. Maybe it's a doubt that is swirling inside your mind, keeping you up at night. Maybe it's a stress at work, a stress at home. Maybe it's a feeling of pressure that people are putting on you, expectations and demands. The way we can be freed from that is essentially to let go of control and to choose to trust in Jesus. And as you let go of that, whatever it is that's holding you back from this freedom and this fullness of life, as you release that through trust in him, receive the gift of freedom. The Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And so right here and right now in this sacred place, in the presence of God, breathe in the spirit of freedom, because it's yours for the taking. And be renewed in your choice to use your freedom like Jesus did, to follow him along the path of selfless love, to every day in one specific way try to set yourself aside, set aside those negative feelings, and like him, try to lay down your life for the person next to you, by being patient, by being kind, by forgiving. And in this way, freed from our inner emotional chains, freed for love, we will experience this Easter, the fullness of life.